As the Ethereum hard fork, known as Byzantium, launches without a hitch, more and more people, corporations, and countries are getting both serious and vocal about the pros and cons of blockchain technology, distributed ledger systems, and Bitcoin. As we saw in yesterday's video, Russia will be issuing a bit ruble, or a crypto ruble, to get ahead of their European and Asian neighbors. And we know that this is just the first domino in many to get stacked up. Based on past news and recent news, we're expecting several other countries to follow Russia's example, other major countries such as China, Japan, and even the United States, which will likely implement their own version of a fiat-backed national cryptocurrency. So what is China saying about issuing their own national cryptocurrency? What's Japan saying about the possibility of the Japanese J-coin? And what is the IMF saying about the possibility of an IMF coin and the SRD world reserve currency? Let's discuss. Hey everybody, I'm Gary Palmer Jr., you're you, and together we are minting coins. So yeah, everything that we've been talking about in the past 6 months, in the past 9 months, everything that the world and the blockchain industry has been talking about for years and years and years seems to finally be coming to pass. It really seems as if this cycle, this 4-year cycle of this current period of Bitcoin is going to be the most pivotal of perhaps all of the cycles of Bitcoin. So we just had the Bitcoin halving in 2016, where a year and a half into that Bitcoin halving, where every 10 minutes there's only about, what is it, 12 and a half Bitcoins that are created every 10 minutes on average. And we know that this next halving is going to happen, you know, sometime around the summer of 2020. And so a lot of people are talking about 2020, and it may seem very far away, but it is just about 2 years away. And a lot of things are happening. A lot of countries are getting serious about Bitcoin. A lot of countries are getting serious about blockchain technology. And all the speculation that we had around the Russia coin and the Fed coin or the Fed note or the bit ruble or the crypto ruble, whatever we want to call these things, the concepts remain the same. And now the implementations are becoming very, very real. What does this mean for the people who live in these countries? What does it mean for the people of the world? Is this just a way for countries to profit, to increase the value of their own national currencies by turning them cryptic, by allowing them to easily be exchanged for Bitcoin to keep higher levels of liquidity between traditional fiat currencies, which can just be cryptotized, if you will, and true blockchain technologies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, even Dash and Monero, and all of that good stuff, right? Stuff where it's mined, or stuff where it is staked on a world level where everyone is a part of the system, where it's not centrally controlled behind closed doors, are the differences that people are seeing between the original Bitcoin and the original blockchain technology, and what the blockchain technology is being turned into in terms of the distributed ledger systems, which are essentially extremely centralized, which, as we understand the blockchain technology, the more centralized the technology is, the more centralized the cryptocurrency is, the less secure that cryptocurrency becomes. So it's definitely very interesting. There's a lot to go over in the news about China, what China's going to be doing, the possibilities of the China coin and the Japanese coin and the IMF coin. So with that being said, why don't we pop into the market, take a peek to see what's going on in the world, and then take a look at the news, and let's discuss. So quickly, starting over here at coinmarketcap.com, we still have 1,170 different cryptocurrencies and a market capitalization of $175 billion. 24-hour trading volume is healthy at $4.6 billion, and the BTC dominance also, very ripe, very plump at 53.9%, practically 54.4%. And we're wondering how much higher we can see that go in between now and 10 days from now or so, when we expect the additional forks and airdrops to happen with all the news that's coming around the Bitcoin dividends, if you will. So Bitcoin itself currently $94 billion market cap, and people are already getting very, very excited to see this hit a $100 billion. This is going to make major headline news when that happens. It's interesting to see Ethereum that has made it through this Byzantium fork, and we see here the price increasing and stabilizing roughly on the past few days, and that's just a testament of this stability and the faith and the excitement that people have, because this Ethereum Byzantium part 1 of 2 hard forks to create the Metropolis update within Ethereum is critical for all of these different future technologies to exist. And that includes Omizigo, that includes a lot of different technologies that are dependent on that. And so when I see that this price is a third, or the market cap is a third of Bitcoin, when we were half, just all of these altcoin prices have been, essentially dumping for the past couple of weeks in anticipation of the happenings with Bitcoin, that it's going to be really, really exciting to see the volatility and to see the excitement and to see which coins pump after we get past the Bitcoin Gold and the Bitcoin SegWit updates, and to see, if we hit that $6,000 BTC price, that $6,000 Bitcoin price, if we break the $100 million market cap, and then we see a little bit of a correction where some of that Bitcoin capital, that Bitcoin value, which is contributing to 54% of the 175 billion currently, will then get put into a lot of these altcoins because they're just, frankly, on fire sales. These coins are so cheap. And this isn't trading or stuff, speculation. If you want, we could talk about interesting coins and concepts in the community group at mintingcoins.com. But yeah, needless to say, we're a little excited about what's going to be happening for the rest of 2017. And just really quick, looking at the Bitcoin price, and so the Ethereum price is up 1% compared to the Bitcoin price through the hard fork. Ripple moving up, Litecoin down. Litecoin is a coin that we think is on sale right now, relatively speaking. And yeah, Stellar Lumens up a whopping 126%, so that's definitely interesting. And yeah, a lot going on. Taking a quick peek at Reddit, see what's going on and how things in Reddit are looking at the market and the market cycle before we get into the news. We have the Bitcoin hate cycle. And so this is, what do we have here? Is this Paul Kruger? Is that how you pronounce his name? And Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase. Let's not talk about Bitcoin anymore. I can't bear it. Same. Pause. The thing is, though, such a bubble. So they can't stop talking about it. They can't stop criticizing it because they recognize that this is an extinction level event, what's happening with cryptocurrency, blockchain technology in reference to finances, right? How financial technology and blockchain technology together are disrupting the traditional banking system, which hasn't seen real competition in 100 years, over 100 years. Real quick, just to get some perspective from Satoshi Nakamoto, him or herself or themself, we have a quote here with this original comment from Satoshi Nakamoto in an original reply, where he just goes on to say, as the number of users grow, the value per coin increases. That has the potential for a positive feedback loop. As users increase, the value goes up, which could attract more users to take advantage of the increasing value. it's interesting because J.P. Morgan Diamond would almost, you know, point at this and say that's the you know, why this is a Ponzi scheme. But this is just the same definition and actualization of things like gold and things like stocks, except for the fact that with Bitcoin, it's extremely limited to the 21 million cap, where gold, there's paper derivatives of gold, where, you know, people can say that this is gold when the market is not counting that, you know, the same way, or fiat currency, which can be increased in the amount that exists. Bitcoin is extremely limited, so we have this feedback loop of the value of Bitcoin increasing exponentially over time. Speaking of people purchasing Bitcoin over time, you know, and people who are buying lump sums at once, or maybe purchasing one whole Bitcoin instead of purchasing, you know, 0.1 Bitcoin at a time, or, you know, purchasing 0.01 Bitcoin at a time, or a millibit, 0.001 Bitcoin at a time. And so this was a funny, you know, when you buy Bitcoin at $5,800 and it dips back to $5,400, that's definitely a scary, scary feeling, which is why the experts recommend that people consider dollar cost averaging and dollar cost purchasing. Not that any of this on this channel is financial advice. So, and then we have here, holding Bitcoin is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so you can spend the rest of your life living like most people can't. So that's someone's quote, and it was really interesting. So people were like fighting about this in Reddit. This one person was just saying, you know, Bitcoin was $13 on January 1st, 2013. That was 5 years ago. If you had thrown a few $100s in, like $300, this person says that now that'd be over $100,000, over $133,000. Most people that this person knows would consider that a lot of money. And so people just, you know, like haters of Bitcoin just aren't really seeing that. And looking at the price, you know, 30x from $13 to $300, is it possible that the value of Bitcoin could go from $5 or $5,000 to $150,000? And so if it can go from $5,000 to $150,000, I think that'd be roughly the same as it going from 13 to 300. And so we still have these proportions that are the same. So $300 fiat is less now than it was a few years ago, right, because of inflation. And so if you get into Bitcoin when there's a more affordable rate, and there's more supply being created on a regular basis, we haven't hit that 2020 mark where right now there's 12.5 Bitcoins that are created every 10 minutes, but after 2020 that's going to get cut to 6.25 Bitcoins that are created every 10 minutes. It's going to be a decrease in the supply, which if the demand stays the same or increases, would increase the supply of the Bitcoin according to the way, you know, supply and demand theory works. Again, this is not marketing and market trading. It's not trading advice. Okay, so turning into the news, let's see what's going on. So first of all, as we were talking about before, we had the Ethereum hard fork Byzantium, which launched, and the prices are looking really, really good. This hard fork was uncontentious. It was positive in the community. The community is looking forward and is excited about the future potential that's coming in from this fork, and this is the planned roadmap for Ethereum. So here's Vitalik Buterin celebrating on a tweet, hard fork celebration, all things looking good over there. And yeah, and so this is just part one of part two. So the Byzantium is part one, and then we have part two coming at some point in 2018. We don't know when in 2018 that is going to come, but the second hard fork is going to be Constantinople, and these two forks put together is going to be the totality of the Metropolis update, allowing all this future tech to really thrive in terms of the Ethereum roadmap and the Ethereum ecosystem. So turning into some more news, and so like some on the heels of what's going on with Russia and the bit ruble or the crypto ruble, whichever that's going to be called, We have other countries, other places in the world that are talking about tokenizing their fiat currencies and tokenizing, in some cases, potentially the world reserve currencies. And so we have here the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, that wants to enter, potentially, the cryptocurrency arena with its own coin. And so Christine Lagarde, the IMF managing director, has recently said that they would not rule out creating their own version of a cryptocurrency. And so Christine goes on to say recently at Washington, D.C., at a meeting in Washington, D.C., at the annual IMF meeting, that she thinks that they're about to see massive disruptions in, what does that mean? I suppose in finance and banking. And that institutions are taking potentially huge risks by not watching and understanding the emerging financial technology products and what's happening in the world of fintech and blockchain technology. So with all that being said, she pointed to the IMF's special drawing right. So the special drawing right is known as the SDR. And the SDR, through the IMF, is a currency that the IMF created to serve as an international reserve asset. And this international reserve asset could incorporate blockchain technology like other cryptocurrencies that are now being introduced into the world, and or decentralized distributed ledger systems, right? Which aren't really blockchain technology, which isn't really blockchain. And so we're going to get into the SDR in a second. The IMF, this goes on to say, is looking to make its way into the crypto space with their hopes of regulating the crypto space. So the IMF wants to get into cryptocurrency so it can regulate cryptocurrency. And Christine Lagarde goes on to say that it makes sense for them to do this simply due to the cross-border nature of the technology. So where countries and regional areas of the world have their own regional currency, like in America or the European Union or Russia or China, the IMF is interested in, helping financial institutions across the world with this regulation because it's international, because it's cross-border, and it's the worldwide aspect and regulation and control of that situation. So there's this other article came out of the Cointelegraph on October 2nd, and this is talking about how the yuan became the world's 5th reserve currency. This article goes on to speculate about if Bitcoin can potentially become the world's 6th Bitcoin world reserve currency. We're going to talk about what does that mean right now. So the SDR, first of all, this special drawing right, or the special drawing rights, is like a basket. It's like an ETF. It's a basket of different national currencies that are put into a basket in proportion to how are they deemed. And this SDR was created by the IMF in 1969 as the world reserve asset. I wonder when The Economist magazine came out. I should check that out. But as there was a shortage of existing reserve assets, such as gold and the US dollar, to support the expansion of world trade. And so I'm pretty sure that this is before the US dollar came off of being a gold-backed reserve currency. I think that happened in the 70s. And so before that happened, the IMF created the SDR. So the currencies which form part of the SDR basket are the US dollar, the euro, the Japanese yen, the pound sterling, and now since October 1st, the Chinese yuan. So, side note, the US dollar will continue to constitute the major currency in the SDR basket with a weight of less than half, but at the majority, apparently, of 47%. And so what happens here is that the SDR is reviewed by the IMF every 5 years. And when it went through this review, it looks at benchmarks to use to measure what's going to be included to use as currencies in the reserve of other countries, including trading volumes, debt denominated in that country, and other factors like that. And so that's really interesting, because if Bitcoin has great trading volumes, and if other countries have debt denominated in Bitcoin, then those would be two reasons why Bitcoin could get implemented as a IMF world reserve currency, for better or for worse. It's just set up that way. We know trading volumes are going to increase for Bitcoin. We know debt is going to be denominated in Bitcoin and future currencies, and then I'm sure that Bitcoin is going to be able to be converted for bit rubles, or crypto rubles, right? Let's see here. And so China has increasingly importance to the global economy, including the increasing number of yuan-denominated transactions. So again, in reference to Bitcoin, Bitcoin could also become increasingly important to the global economy, and Bitcoin could also become increasing in the number of Bitcoin transactions throughout the entire world. And so this is giving why the Chinese yuan has been added as the fifth. And while this is giving reasons why, it's giving the same reasons why Bitcoin doesn't fit this category, but we can extrapolate and project that Bitcoin could meet these very same requirements. And so then Bitcoin could, then be argued to be added to the IMF SDR token potentially. For better or for worse, I don't even know what that means. So the IMF will want a currency whose supply can mimic the global growth in trading volume. Again, so they're saying that this is a disadvantage, but if Bitcoin can be broken down into 8 decimal points, it can still be traded on that sort of scale, just at smaller numbers, right? It's just people have this psychological desire for whole numbers, and with the decimal places, it just creates more opportunity. And so I think that while they're creating this as a barrier, it's really a false barrier. It's not really a real barrier. So in the show notes, I'm going to be including these links to the IMF so you guys can read more about the special drawing right, the SDR currency. I just wanted to note here that the next currency review is scheduled to take place on September 30th, 2021. Unless, of course, an earlier review is warranted by developments in the interim. So you'll be able to check out this information to get more information about, facts about the special drawing right SDR, and then we also have the FAQ page here for the special drawing right SDR allocations. So check that out, and then after you read that, let us know if you have any questions about this, because this is definitely interesting. Because this has already existed for a long time. This is apparently a world reserve currency ETF system, which they have discussions, or they have these statements about potentially tokenizing either an IMF coin or an SDR. I'm not really sure what that relationship is between the current SDR, adding blockchain technology to the SDR currency, and if the IMF coin would be a separate thing or the same thing with a different name. All of that remains to be seen. So something I wanted to point out looking at the news and seeing the headlines come across is that with different countries in the world, and I think this has been predicted by Satoshi and by other people in the early days, that we have different levels of countries. So we have very, very large countries, you have world power countries, you have countries that are extremely developed but aren't necessarily world powers, although highly advanced in terms of the society, the technology, the business, the education. And you have other countries that are more in a developmental stage, more of a second world or a third world. And I think we recognize that a lot of the third world countries can have mass adoption to Bitcoin. We've all heard about banking the unbanked. Recently, June at Omizigo was talking about unbanking the banked. So it wasn't just unbanking, or it wasn't banking the unbanked, but it was unbanking the banked, right? And so with the news that's been coming out, there's always a lot of criticism from the countries that have more control, more power, especially when that's in the areas of financial control and financial power. Countries like China, countries like the United States, countries like Russia. major countries in the European Union, especially in the financial regulatory space. And in this case here, we have information coming out of the Philippines, and so I haven't really looked up to be able to classify what level of country the Philippines are, but with that being said, the Deputy Director of the Philippines Central Bank has highlighted the advantages of using cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. And so they've highlighted these advantages in these different regulations that the central bank of the Philippines has been releasing throughout in this industry earlier this year. And so this is just really interesting because the people at this bank, they underline the authorities recently released guidelines as pioneering regulation, as they were among the first in the world to talk about this and to get into this for their country and for their citizens. And so does this sound like 100% against Bitcoin, or does this sound about more as if it's hedging toward Bitcoin without upsetting other major players in the space? So this person goes on to say, it's like any other monetary instrument, and even in an investment instrument, there are risks, but essentially it can be managed. If you want something that is fast, near real time, and convenient, then there's the benefits of using virtual currencies like Bitcoin. And that's the quote here from the central bank. And so they're saying that it's not a matter of a savings and investment tool, but they're saying that they see it more as a payment and remittance tool rather than an investment asset. So to me, what I see, what I hear when I check this out, is that these countries, these banks, want to get Bitcoin into their countries. They want to get payments into their countries. They don't care if it's dollars or not dollars. They don't care if it's Bitcoin. They know Bitcoin is awesome. They know it's valuable. They know it's increasing in value. They know that their country wants the money, they need the money, and to just send that money in. At the same time, they don't want to say invest in it. They don't want to say that, you know, this is a currency. They just want to say, you know, it might have a purpose, because they are a central bank and they probably don't want to upset the other banks in the world, which, you know, have a lot of control over them. And so speaking of other places in the world and other major banking systems in the world, we have this Chinese conference, this government-backed Chinese conference, which in terms of Bitcoin, called Bitcoin a Disaster. And so we have Chinese scholars who showed their interest in the idea of a state-issued digital currency and steadfastly refused to recognize the value of a public cryptocurrency such as Bitcoin. A public cryptocurrency is a good way of talking about it. A decentralized, a peer-to-peer. I guess we have a public internet. We have a world wide web. And we don't want a state-backed internet. We don't want a state-controlled internet. We want a World Wide Web public internet, just like we want a public cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin. So we have the Director of Digital Currency Research Institute of the People's Bank of China, and in his speech he pointed out the importance of the state's endorsement of digital currency and questioned the value of Bitcoin. This banking official doesn't believe in Bitcoin and says that the value of a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin primarily comes from the speculation of the market. It will be a disaster if countries recognize Bitcoin as a real currency. The lack of value anchoring inherently determines that Bitcoin can never be a real currency. Lip service, you know, this could be argued one way or the other, but this person would probably, from their business standpoint, from their market standpoint, would rather issue their own cryptocurrency than use one that they don't control. So again, we have large financial institutions that are talking against public blockchains that are borderless, transparent, censor-resistant, non-discriminatory of who you are, or all it cares about is if you have access to your private keys and isn't actively spying on you. And so they want to issue the cryptocurrencies is just very clear, where they can have control of the inflation rate, they can have control of the supply, they can have insights into the information of the transactions coming in and out of that currency. So some scholars believe that by issuing the state-owned digital currency, countries could stabilize domestic fiat currency. And so that's really interesting. And so we're seeing that come out of Russia, and we're seeing the Chinese talking about this. Now that China has started to organize a discussion about the potential of a state-issued digital currency, one wonders if China plans on issuing its own fiat-backed currency. And as we saw from yesterday's news, Russia issued news of their own cryptocurrency because they, the one and only reason that was stated was that they wanted to get ahead of their European and Asian neighbors who would inevitably be issuing their own nation's, fiat-backed cryptocurrency as well. So Russia did it. China is actively talking about this. This is essentially an arms race of state-backed cryptocurrencies at this point. This is an arms race of which country can amass their own stockpiles of Bitcoin and which countries can most quickly adopt and adapt their fiat currency into the cryptocurrency space, so there can be essentially instant transactions between fiat currencies, between Fed notes and yuan coins and bit ruples and J coins and Bitcoin. Just having these immediate instant payments between all these different currencies is going to give the country a competitive advantage, right? This isn't to me, this isn't about destroying Bitcoin, not at this major, not at this nuanced stage of what's happening. This is about the countries creating their own fiat-backed currencies to create faster payment transactions between just worldwide transactions. It doesn't matter if it's a coffee transaction or if it's a multi-million-dollar international exchange, or if it's between the country's fiat currency and a public-based cryptocurrency. What they're looking for is these instant transactions, the ability to have the volatility and the speed, which is going to be critical for the survival of any sort of financial instrument, any sort of messaging in the future. So in addition to China, we also have Japanese banks. We have this published on September 27th, so just a couple weeks ago from CNBC. And so this is Japanese banks, and they're thinking of making their own cryptocurrency called the J coin. I think we talked about this before in a previous video. And so I just wanted to touch upon this because it's relevant again in terms of what Russia did, in terms of what the Chinese are talking about. So Japanese banks are looking into their own digital currency called the J coin. And the J coin will be pegged to the yen, and users will be able to spend it through a mobile app. And so the purpose of the Japanese banks wanting to create the J coin is so the Japanese can wean their society off and away from using cash. Cash makes transactions slow. Cash increases the cost of financial systems because you have to print all that money. Cash creates a lot of inefficiencies with counting the money, being physical and all that jazz. And then there's also the privacy aspects of being able to do tracking and being able to collect taxes and being able to collect fees and all that as well. So there's a lot of reasons why central authorities and central banks want people to move away from cash and cold hard cash and move it into digital assets. And then for other reasons, we know that they want to have more control over their nation's economics by issuing their own version of a cryptocurrency that can be interchanged potentially with Bitcoin, it seems, will be the case. So that's really, really interesting. All right, so we talked about the IMF coin, we talked about the crypto ruble, we talked about the potential of a Chinese cryptocurrency, we talked about the J coin, and we talked about the Ethereum, Byzantium, hard fork success. And so all that and more we can talk about over at mintingcoins.com. I encourage you to check us out over at mintingcoins.com, make an account, sign up for our membership. We're really early in the game in terms of moving forward with this website and seeking to bring the community together in a way where we can support the most number of people with the fewest number of trolls and people who are subtracting from the conversation. We're looking to add to the conversation. And so there might be some bugs. There's definitely some bugs in the website. There's always going to be some bugs on the website, and we're looking to, do as much as we can as fast as we can. If you're one of the first 500 users and if you want a free membership, then make an account at Minting Coins and then email us to the website and we'll upgrade your account to a full member for free. We're just really excited about sharing ideas, about sharing information, about talking about what's going on, and really bringing everyone's ideas to the table, right? I mean, people who aren't trolling, people who are adding to the conversation, people that just have all these great pieces of information. I get emails from so many people that are giving me so many tips. Right now I can't possibly make a video about everything. And there's so many more people that want to learn about the things that people are saying. And there's a lot of similarity and there's a lot of commonality. And at the same time, there's like a wonderful amount of diversity between everyone here who's joining us and watching the Minting Coins show and getting information with Minting Coins. So what we want to do is bring people together, and then instead of emailing just me and having me see that, you can be a part of the community, you can share that in one of the groups, one of the forums, and see if we can get more people's attention on what's happening, more people to be a part of the discussion about what's happening, and more people getting together to discuss Bitcoin and blockchain technology. So with that being said, I'd love to know what you think. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think about the IMF Coin, SDRs, China Coin, J Coin, BitRupel. Are you really excited about the Ethereum Byzantium hard fork? I can't wait until we see the Omizigo SDK. I'm really excited to see the white label wallet and just find out how developers can really start building on top of that application. There's so much happening in the space. It's really, really exciting. Thanks for showing up. Hit that like button. Follow us on Steemit. Join us at Minting Coins. We'll be releasing more news as we always do. So until then, thanks for being with us, and I'm glad that together we are Minting Coins.